Mistress tries to harm a pregnant wife, but the billionaire husband risks his life to save her. From the gleaming towers of Manhattan's skyline to the hush of private hospital rooms, a storm brews beneath a veneer of unimaginable wealth. Billionaire mogul James Lockwood seemingly has it all: power, influence, and a love that has just blessed him and his wife, Ariana, with a long-awaited pregnancy. Yet, behind closed doors, a hidden affair threatens to tear their world apart. The cunning mistress, Giselle, will do anything to secure her place at James's side, even if it means endangering Ariana and the child she carries. Prepare yourself for deceit, seduction, and life-threatening twists in a real-life drama that no one saw coming. A soft drizzle bathed Manhattan that morning, casting a silvery sheen over the skyscrapers and giving them an otherworldly glow. From within the opulent penthouse atop Lockwood Tower, a 50-floor luxury high-rise that bore his family name, James Lockwood gazed through floor-to-ceiling windows. The city, alive with morning traffic and lit by neon signs despite the early hour, spread out before him like a kingdom he had painstakingly built from scratch. At 39, James was the epitome of the self-made billionaire. He had inherited a modest construction firm from his late uncle, a business teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, and within a decade, he had turned it into Lockwood Enterprises, a global real estate conglomerate. Now, a portrait of confidence in a crisp, tailored suit, James silently tapped the screen of his phone, checking messages from his aides. His tall, lean frame and striking, sharply carved features projected an air of power, but a faint shadow marred his usual composure. His eyes, normally bright with ambition, were clouded with worry. A short distance away, Ariana Lockwood, his wife of 4 years, stood near the opened kitchen, smoothing the hem of a lavender silk robe that skimmed her delicate ankles. 8 months pregnant, Ariana glowed with a new kind of radiance, her every movement marked by a gentleness that came with impending motherhood. She was no stranger to high society herself. Her father, the revered Dr. Marcus Green, was one of the most respected surgeons in the country and had ensured she grew up with both privilege and a grounding sense of compassion. Ariana's philanthropic work often took her to children's hospitals and community centers, where she personally oversaw charity drives. It was this blend of grace and empathy that had first captivated James years ago when they met at a fundraising gala in Boston. Looking back, their initial meeting felt like a scene from a storybook. Ariana had been there representing her father's medical foundation, and James was a special invitee, recognized for his contributions to urban development. Their eyes locked across the banquet hall, and before the night ended, they discovered that beneath the polished exteriors lay shared passions for helping the less fortunate, for expanding opportunities, for building something that lasted beyond themselves. Their whirlwind courtship soon culminated in a dazzling wedding that splashed across the society pages. They quickly became the envy of New York's elite, the handsome mogul and his graceful philanthropist wife. A modern fairy tale indeed, or so it had seemed. Yet, for the past few months, a quiet tension had been seeping into their marriage. Ariana first noticed it in small ways: James fidgeting with his phone during dinner, the abrupt hush whenever he received late-night messages, and the occasional mention of urgent business that pulled him away without warning. At first, she brushed it off as typical of a high-powered businessman, but as these moments grew more frequent, Ariana felt a gnawing unease in her heart. Her father, ever observant, once gently suggested she talk openly with James instead of jumping to conclusions. But how could Ariana do so without seeming like a paranoid spouse? Especially when she herself had known how hard James worked to achieve his success. Countless late nights, daily negotiations, flights all over the country to secure deals. She wanted to trust him. And yet, intuition nagged at her that there was more to James's restless demeanor than just complicated contracts. This morning, Ariana decided to try a different approach to reclaim a moment of closeness. She prepared a plate of fresh fruit, her favorite chamomile tea, and a cup of decaf coffee for James. She yearned for a few minutes in which it was just the two of them, sharing the kind of ordinary intimacy that had once been so natural. Yet as she approached, she realized James was on the phone again. His voice, low and urgent, carried a strained edge. Ariana caught snatches of his side of the conversation. The paperwork can't vanish. No, that doesn't make sense. We'll discuss it at the office, he said, his tone exasperated. There was something about the conversation's tenor, something beyond the run-of-the-mill pressures of business, that set her nerves on edge. Eventually, he ended the call, glancing at Ariana with an apologetic flicker in his eyes. He took the coffee she offered but scarcely sipped it. "I'm sorry, honey," he murmured, pressing a quick kiss to her temple. "Crisis at work. You know how it is. I'll get it sorted." "I'm sure you will," Ariana replied, trying and failing to mask the concern in her voice. "But are you okay?" James hesitated a fraction of a second. "I'm fine. Just tired," he finally said, his words deliberately casual. "Don't worry about me. Focus on keeping yourself and the baby healthy." A flicker of warmth touched Ariana's heart. He still cared. Of that she had no doubt. But she also recognized how skillfully he sidestepped her question. Their exchange was interrupted by a soft ping from the private elevator that opened directly into their penthouse. A uniformed house staff member stepped out, informing James that his car was waiting downstairs. James set his coffee cup down, barely touched, and left with a hurried promise. "We'll talk tonight. I won't be too late." Ariana watched his retreating figure, a swirl of conflicted emotions flooding her. Something about the strain in his eyes, the tightness in his voice, made her suspect it wasn't just a routine business emergency. Yet, how could she accuse him without evidence? She silently prayed that her husband was merely grappling with a high-stakes deal or something equally benign, because the alternative weighed on her heart like a stone. Exhaling shakily, she walked into the living area, her gaze resting on a large framed photograph. It was from their wedding day, she in a lace gown that shimmered, he in a sharp tuxedo, both caught mid-laugh, completely at ease. In the picture, they looked every bit the blissful couple, sharing an unbreakable bond. Now, Ariana felt the baby move, a gentle kick that reminded her there was far more at stake than just her pride or her marriage vows. A future life depended on them maintaining the love and trust they once had. Gliding across the polished marble floor, Ariana placed a palm over her round belly. She offered a silent promise. "No matter what secrets lurk behind our perfect facade, I will protect you, little one. I will keep our family together, even if I have to battle shadows I never saw coming." Later that morning, Ariana's routine brought her to her obstetrician's office for a scheduled checkup. She had chosen to consult with the renowned doctor, Elizabeth Martin at Johns Hopkins, a name recognized across the country for her groundbreaking work in maternal-fetal medicine. Though New York City was Ariana's home base, she insisted on making periodic trips to Baltimore for Dr. Martin's specialized care. It was a slight inconvenience, but one that gave her peace of mind after a past miscarriage left her desperate to protect this pregnancy at all costs. As she sat in the waiting room, Ariana tried to push away the nagging fear that something was going on behind her back. She recalled how, just a week earlier, she had stumbled upon a suspicious text message on James's phone from someone named GC. The message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Sex." It ended with a heart emoji. Ariana hadn't confronted James, then fearful that her accusations would shatter whatever remained of their harmony. Instead, She clung to denial, telling herself it might be innocent or even a misunderstanding. But deep down, she doubted. When Dr. Martin called Ariana's name, she rose with a small wave of anxiety. As Dr. Martin performed the ultrasound, Ariana felt tears prick the corners of her eyes. The strong heartbeat of her baby was a sound that filled her with boundless hope. For the duration of that exam, she managed to shove away her worries. Dr. Martin glanced at her patient's chart. "Everything looks good. You're healthy, the baby's healthy, but you do seem tense, Ariana. Is something troubling you?" Ariana sighed. "Just stress. James has a lot on his plate, and it's been rubbing off on me." Dr. Martin gave her a reassuring smile. "I know you've been through a lot before. Don't let stress overshadow the joy of these moments. If you need help or a referral to a therapist, let me know." Emotional well-being is as important as physical health, especially now. Leaving the doctor's office, Ariana felt a surge of resolve. She needed to address her doubts. If James was straying, if this GC was more than just a friend or colleague, Ariana deserved the truth. That evening, Ariana waited for James at the dining table, a home-cooked meal growing cold as the clock ticked past 10. When he finally stumbled in, his tie loosened and eyes heavy with fatigue, he mumbled a cursory apology. She approached him, resting a hand gently on his arm. "James, is everything all right?" she pressed, voice quivering. "Yes, I'm just exhausted." He rubbed his temple. "I'll shower and head to bed." Her heart sank, yet she couldn't bring herself to confront him in that moment. She told herself she needed proof, something tangible. As James retreated into the bedroom, Ariana moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows again, gazing out over the city lights. She recalled how bright and full of promise those lights once seemed, and how now they only illuminated her growing fears. The next day, Ariana found herself in the lavish lobby of Lockwood Enterprises. She'd decided to surprise James with lunch from his favorite gourmet Thai restaurant, a small act of love to reconnect with her husband. With a neatly packaged takeout box in hand, she stepped off the private elevator on the executive floor. Moments later, she spotted her husband standing near the reception area, deep in conversation with a stunning brunette in a form-fitting designer dress. The woman flicked her hair over her shoulder, her lipstick a bold shade of crimson. Her eyes sparkled with confidence as she leaned in closer to James than Ariana found appropriate. Something about her posture and the way she batted her lashes sent a prickling sensation down Ariana's spine. "Mrs. Lockwood, good afternoon," greeted Lena, the receptionist. "Would you like me to announce you?" James turned at the sound of her name. An uneasy smile played on his lips, and he quickly stepped away from the brunette. "Ariana, what a pleasant surprise," he said. But Ariana couldn't help noticing the flicker of guilt in his eyes. She walked over, forcing a polite smile. "I brought lunch," she said, lifting the takeout bag. Her tone was warm, but her gaze was fixed on the other woman. James cleared his throat. "Yes, of course. This is Giselle Carter, a consultant on a current project. Giselle, my wife, Ariana." Giselle's lips curved into a perfect smile. "So nice to finally meet you, Mrs. Lockwood. James talks about you all the time." There was a hint of challenge in her voice, as though daring Ariana to see the truth behind her words. It felt like a punch to Ariana's gut. The name GC rang in her memory. Could Giselle Carter be the one behind those mysterious messages? Ariana managed to maintain a gracious composure. "Nice to meet you," she said, extending her hand. Giselle's grip was brief but firm, her nails digging ever so lightly into Ariana's skin before releasing. James quickly ushered Ariana into his office. The air was heavy with unspoken tension as Ariana set out the Thai food. She tried to remain calm, but each passing second amplified her suspicions. They sat down at the small conference table, and Ariana was the first to speak. I didn't realize you had a new consultant. You never mentioned her. It was a last-minute hire, James said, picking at his meal. Giselle brings a fresh perspective to some of our marketing strategies. She's talented. Ariana swallowed her retort. Instead, she pressed him gently. And how long will you need her? Just until the project's complete, he replied, not meeting her eyes. She wanted to ask if that project included staying out until midnight or sending flirty text messages. But something in her warned that a public confrontation here might make everything worse. So she forced a small nod. As she left the building, Ariana couldn't shake the sense that Giselle Carter was more than just a consultant. Her stomach churned with dread. She placed a hand protectively over her belly, reminding herself of the precious life she carried. She resolved then, if Giselle Carter posed any threat to her marriage or her baby, Ariana would have to fight back with every ounce of strength she possessed. Days turned into weeks, and Ariana's suspicions only grew. James's late nights continued, along with cryptic phone calls and unexplained charges on his credit card. Ariana, usually dignified and poised, found herself skimming through James's receipts, searching for evidence of dinners for two at upscale restaurants or stays at boutique hotels. Every unusual expense ignited her imagination. Was he there with Giselle? It wasn't just Ariana who noticed the shift. Their household staff, ever discreet, wore concerned expressions. Ariana's personal assistant, Rosa, gently suggested that Ariana take some time away, perhaps a weekend at a spa in the Hamptons, to ease her mind and rest before the baby arrived. Ariana considered it, but a gnawing fear held her back. She worried that if she left James alone, Giselle would seize the opportunity to deepen her hold on him. One afternoon, Ariana received an unexpected call from her close friend, Bianca Monroe, a socialite known for her impeccable taste and wide social circle. Bianca sounded hesitant as she spoke. Ariana, I've heard rumors, she said softly. Some whispers about James and another woman. I didn't want to believe it, but people are talking. Ariana's throat tightened. She had expected rumors in the cutthroat world of high society, but hearing it aloud was more painful than she anticipated. Thank you for telling me, she managed to reply, her voice trembling. After the call, Ariana paced her living room, trying to decide her next steps. Confront James now? Snoop further for solid proof? She felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and a desperate yearning to protect her unborn child from scandal. The tension came to a head one rainy night when James returned home close to midnight, the scent of perfume lingering on his suit jacket. Ariana couldn't contain her frustration anymore. She met him at the door with tears in her eyes. Where have you been? She demanded, voice breaking. Do you realize how late it is, how worried I've been? James ran a hand through his hair, looking exhausted. Ariana, not tonight. I'm too tired. You promised me an explanation, she insisted. Is there someone else? Is it Giselle Carter? He winced at the mention of her name. Ariana, it's complicated. She took a step back, her heart hammering. Then uncomplicated. I'm pregnant with your child, James. I deserve the truth. He inhaled deeply, struggling for words. For an agonizing moment, he looked as though he might confess everything. But then his phone buzzed. James glanced at the screen, and the guilt on his face told Ariana all she needed to know. He closed his eyes. I just need more time. I never wanted to hurt you, Ariana. It all spiraled out of control. Disgusted, Ariana turned on her heel, tears streaming down her cheeks as she made her way to the guest bedroom. She shut the door behind her, leaning against it, trying to catch her breath. She knew then that Giselle Carter was no mere consultant, and if Ariana hoped to keep her family intact, she would have to fight for it. As the days passed, Ariana found her nights plagued by restless dreams. She'd dream of Giselle standing over her hospital bed, a sinister smile on her face as she reached for Ariana's unborn child. Each morning, Ariana woke in a cold sweat, her heart pounding, and the sense of looming danger only strengthened when she was awake. James, for his part, was torn between duty and desire. He had entered the affair with Giselle at a vulnerable moment. Work stress and the pressure of impending fatherhood had clouded his judgment. Giselle, with her beauty and cunning intelligence, had seemed like an escape, a thrill. But James didn't realize that what he thought was a casual fling had become a dark obsession for her. Now, each time he tried to sever ties, Giselle found a way to pull him back in, hinting at blackmail or threatening to embarrass him publicly. Meanwhile, Ariana unearthed more suspicious clues. One afternoon, while tidying James's study, she discovered a small slip of paper tucked inside a folder, labeled confidential. On it was a handwritten address in Brooklyn and a phone number with the initials GC. Ariana recognized Giselle's florid script. She was stunned to realize that James had been meeting Giselle in a rundown part of town, a far cry from their usual elite establishments. Her outrage mingled with sorrow. She recalled how much she and James had overcome. She was reminded of an old heartbreak. Ariana had miscarried their first pregnancy in their second year of marriage, and James had been by her side, tender and supportive. They had vowed to cherish each other all the more after that tragedy. Now that she was pregnant again, was James truly willing to risk their marriage and their family for a short-lived affair? Determined, Ariana decided she had to see for herself what was going on. That evening, after James left for an urgent meeting, she summoned her longtime driver, Oliver, and provided him with the address from the slip of paper. Ariana felt a surge of adrenaline and fear as the car navigated through the city, leaving behind the gleaming skyscrapers of Manhattan for the grittier outskirts of Brooklyn. By the time they arrived, night had fallen. Ariana observed a discreet condo building with a guarded entrance. She told Oliver to wait. Wearing a long coat to conceal her pregnancy, she attempted to slip into the lobby unnoticed. But the building security system required a code, and she had none. Ariana was forced to watch from across the street, her breath fogging up the chilly air. Her heart jolted as she spotted a sleek, black Mercedes pull up to the curb. The driver's side door opened, and out stepped James. A moment later, a woman in a tight dress rushed out of the building to greet him. Though Ariana couldn't see her face clearly, she recognized the distinctive brunette hair and confident stride. Giselle Carter. Ariana sank back against the side of a building, tears stinging her eyes. She had her answer, but the confirmation brought little solace. All she knew was that her marriage was on the brink of collapse. What she could not yet fathom was the extent of Giselle's determination to remove any obstacle, including Ariana herself and the unborn child, to claim James for her own. A week after Ariana's clandestine discovery in Brooklyn, a major event loomed on the social calendar, the annual Lockwood Enterprises Charity Gala. It was a night of glitz and glamour, attended by celebrities, politicians, and high society elite, all there to support Lockwood Enterprises' philanthropic causes. Ariana had always played a prominent role in organizing the gala, overseeing every detail from the menu to the guest list. But this year, her enthusiasm was tempered by heartbreak. Still, Ariana was determined to uphold the family image. She donned a floor-length emerald gown that accentuated her pregnancy bump. A matching emerald necklace, an anniversary gift from James, hung against her collarbone. She remembered the day he had given it to her, tears of happiness in his eyes. The memory felt like a distant dream now. James tried to act the devoted husband that evening, guiding Ariana through the throng of guests, smiling for photographs. He delivered a polished speech about charitable giving and the importance of unity in challenging times. Applause thundered through the grand ballroom, and Ariana recognized the practiced ease with which James wore his mask of success. He was brilliant at it, convincing enough that many onlookers admired their happy couple facade. But the moment she spotted Giselle Carter among the glittering crowd, Ariana's heart lurched. Giselle wore a red silk gown that clung to her curves, her lips painted the same bold shade. She made no effort to hide her presence, meeting Ariana's gaze with a half-smile that dripped with arrogance. When James finished his speech, Giselle slipped through the crowd to approach him. Ariana observed from across the room. She could see Giselle's hand brush flirtatiously against James's arm, and the subtle tension in his posture as he tried to maintain composure. Sensing the brewing confrontation, Ariana excused herself from a group of donors and made her way toward them. She caught Giselle's remark in mid-sentence. "James, the first need to discuss something important, privately." "Whatever you have to say, Giselle, you can say in front of me," Ariana interjected, her voice steady. Giselle's eyes slid to Ariana, narrowing slightly. "Oh, but this concerns business, Mrs. Lockwood. I wouldn't want to bore you with details you may not fully understand." Ariana refused to be intimidated. "I think I can handle it." James shifted uneasily, clearly torn between the two women. Before he could speak, Giselle arched an eyebrow and moved closer to Ariana. "You look radiant, Ariana. Pregnancy suits you, but do take care of yourself. One careless moment in these crowded events, and anything could happen." The thinly veiled threat made Ariana's blood run cold. But before she could respond, Giselle glided away with a triumphant smirk. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Ariana did her best to mingle, but she found herself constantly on guard, a prickling sense of danger crawling over her skin. At one point, she felt her foot slip on the polished marble floor near the staircase. She nearly fell, her hands desperately flailing. James, to his credit, rushed over to stabilize her, genuine concern etched on his face. Gazing around, Ariana thought she glimpsed Giselle peeking from behind a pillar, eyes gleaming with twisted satisfaction. Something sinister was at play. A single misstep could spell disaster for Ariana and her unborn child, and Giselle, it seemed, was just getting started. Following the unsettling encounter at the charity gala, Ariana decided that something had to change. The tension in the Lockwood penthouse was unbearable. James walked on eggshells, and Ariana felt she was suffocating under the weight of suspicion and fear. When he approached her one Sunday morning, eyes filled with remorse, Ariana braced herself for the conversation she both dreaded and needed. "Ariana," James began, his tone uncharacteristically vulnerable, "I know I've been distant. I know you suspect things. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused." She listened, arms wrapped protectively around her belly. "Then end it," she said simply. "End your involvement with Giselle Carter. I want our marriage back, for our baby's sake." He lowered his head. "I've tried, but it's more complicated than you think. Giselle, she's threatening to cause a scandal, to go to the press, to sabotage critical deals. I don't know what she's truly capable of." Ariana's eyes burned with tears. "Are you willing to risk our child's future to protect your business reputation? To protect yourself?" He reached for her hands. "No," he said, voice trembling. "I won't let anything happen to you or the baby. Please, just give me a little more time to sort this out." She pulled away, anguish coursing through her. "James, time is exactly what I don't have. In a month, I'm due to give birth. I can't bring a child into this chaos." Swallowing back sobs, Ariana left the penthouse. She spent the night at her father's estate on the outskirts of the city. Dr. Marcus Green welcomed her with open arms. Though concern marred his features, Ariana confided in him about Giselle's threatening behavior. Her father, a man of influence and medical prestige, was appalled. He suggested hiring extra security, but Ariana hesitated. She didn't want to escalate matters if James could solve them quietly. Over the next few days, Ariana tried to find solace in her philanthropic work. She visited a children's hospital. She regularly supported, delivering care packages. She tried to focus on the hope in the eyes of those children, many of them battling serious illnesses. If they could find joy in the darkest times, why couldn't she muster the courage to face her own demons? Meanwhile, Giselle seemed to sense Ariana's growing resolve. She began sending Ariana cryptic, anonymous notes. The first one read, "You're better off leaving James before it's too late." Another arrived with a small box, a porcelain figurine of a pregnant woman, shattered into pieces. Each message felt like a direct threat, taunting Ariana's vulnerability. Determined to protect herself, Ariana finally contacted a private security firm. She had them install additional cameras in the penthouse and even outside her father's estate. James, noticing these changes, expressed relief. He admitted he was at war with himself, longing to break free from Giselle's hold. But each time he threatened to expose her manipulations, she implied she would retaliate in ways that could harm Ariana or the baby. Ariana laid down one final ultimatum. "James, choose. Your family or Giselle Carter. If you don't leave her by the time our baby is born, I'm leaving you and I'll protect our child by any means necessary." The words left her lips like an exorcism of pain. She could see the heartbreak in James's eyes, but she refused to waver. For her unborn child, she had to stand firm, no matter the cost. Unbeknownst to Ariana and James, Giselle was laying more intricate plans to eliminate her rival. She had always prided herself on her ability to climb the social ladder by latching on to influential men. But none had ever captured her obsession like James Lockwood. In her twisted mind, Ariana was the only thing standing in her way, along with that child Ariana carried. In a dimly lit office space in Midtown Manhattan, Giselle met with a shadowy figure named Luca DeMartino, a small-time con artist and occasional thug. She slid an envelope stuffed with cash across the table. "I need a favor," Giselle said, her voice low. "A staged incident, something that sends Ariana Lockwood to the hospital, maybe a scare that endangers the baby. Nothing traceable back to me. Do we understand each other?" Luca hesitated, thumbing the envelope. "This is big, Giselle. If something goes wrong," Giselle's eyes hardened, "you'll be taken care of. Do it right, and no one will suspect you or me." With that, she left the office, her designer heels clicking on the polished floor. She felt powerful, convinced that once Ariana was out of the picture, either hospitalized or terrified into submission, James would come running back to her. After all, hadn't she been there for him when he needed a shoulder to lean on? Hadn't she proven her devotion in countless illicit ways? But what Giselle didn't count on was Ariana's growing network of support. Aware of Giselle's hostility, Ariana's father insisted on driving her to her next obstetrician appointment at Johns Hopkins. Dr. Elizabeth Martin, alarmed by Ariana's elevated stress levels, urged Ariana to consider bed rest for the final weeks of her pregnancy. Ariana wanted to comply, but she also refused to live in fear. One afternoon, Ariana received a surprising visit at her father's estate. Michael Yuan, an old friend of her family and a well-respected attorney. He had caught wind of the trouble brewing. With his gentle but firm approach, he advised Ariana to consider legal steps against Giselle, including restraining orders if the threats escalated. Ariana was hesitant, knowing James's preference to handle matters discreetly, but she also recognized that time was running out. Meanwhile, James discovered shady financial discrepancies linked to Giselle's consulting fees. Delving into internal documents, he found that Giselle had funneled large sums into an unknown account money that apparently had no connection to any legitimate business. Feeling betrayed and outraged, he confronted Giselle in her downtown apartment. "Is this what you've been doing all along?" James demanded, his voice echoing off the sleek penthouse walls. "Milking my company's resources? Lying to me while blackmailing me to stay with you?" Giselle smirked, unfazed. "You have no idea what I'm capable of," she sneered. Now that Ariana's poking around, maybe I should teach her a lesson. Fear flashed across James's features. "Leave my wife out of this. It's over, Giselle. I'm terminating your contract. And I'm ending whatever we had." Giselle's laughter was cold. "We'll see about that." She watched him storm out of her apartment with satisfaction and reached for her phone. It was time to finalize the plan that would remove Ariana, maybe even the baby, for good. Ariana couldn't shake the ominous feeling that haunted her every waking moment. She sensed that Giselle's threats would escalate into something tangible, something life-threatening. To calm her nerves, she spent afternoons in the gardens of her father's estate, quietly reading or listening to classical music. Yet every rustle of wind through the hedges made her jump. That uneasy sense proved correct one late afternoon, when Ariana ventured out to do some last-minute baby shopping. Determined to focus on the positive, she strolled through an upscale baby boutique on Fifth Avenue, picking out soft blankets and pastel onesies. However, as she stepped out of the store, she noticed a sleek black SUV idling across the street. Its windows were tinted, making it impossible to see inside. But Ariana felt the weight of eyes upon her. She quickly texted her father's driver, Oliver, who was waiting around the corner. By the time she reached the curb, the black SUV revved its engine and took off, merging into traffic. Ariana's heart hammered. Was it a coincidence, or was someone following her? Oliver, alerted to Ariana's panic, circled the block and pulled up beside her. He helped her into the back seat, concern etched on his face. Ariana kept glancing through the rear window, convinced they were being tailed, but no sign of the SUV appeared. That night, Ariana recounted the incident to James, who had come to the estate for dinner. "I don't want to sound paranoid," she said, voice quivering, "but someone was watching me, James." "I'm sure of it." James inhaled sharply. "I've terminated Giselle's contract," he confessed. "It didn't go well. She threatened retaliation against both of us. We need to be extremely cautious." Ariana's father, overhearing, joined them in the living room. "If Giselle is this unhinged, we should consider contacting the authorities," he urged, his stern gaze locking on James. "My daughter and grandchild are not pawns in your business dispute." Shamefaced, James nodded. "You're right. I'll arrange protection." But neither Ariana nor James expected the swiftness of Giselle's next move. 2 days later, Ariana received a phone call from an unknown number. A muffled voice on the other end claimed to be from the private security firm James had mentioned. "Miss Lockwood, we have urgent news. Your assigned officer is waiting outside the Redwood Cafe near Central Park. He'll brief you on a possible threat." It can't wait. Ariana's instincts screamed that something was off. Why would a security officer ask her to meet in a public cafe rather than come directly to the estate? But fear for the safety of her child drove her to comply. She left a note for James, who was out dealing with a business issue, and took Oliver along to Redwood Cafe. When they arrived, the place was eerily quiet. Most patrons had left for the day. Oliver offered to wait in the car, as Ariana insisted she'd only be a moment. She stepped inside the cafe, scanning the few customers. No one approached her. Confusion set in. Suddenly her phone buzzed with a text. "Look out back." Ariana felt her chest tighten. She exited through the back door, finding herself in a narrow alley. A cold wind grazed her cheeks as her eyes darted around. She barely had time to register the figure stepping out of the shadows before it was upon her. A hand clamped over her mouth. She struggled, heart pounding like a war drum. She tried to scream, but the sound was muffled. Panic surged through her veins. This was no random mugging. It was a trap, and Ariana was ensnared in the jaws of Giselle's deadly game. Oliver realized something was wrong when Ariana didn't return after several minutes. He hurried inside the Redwood Cafe, only to find it practically empty. Frantic, he rushed down the alley, glimpsing Ariana's purse lying on the ground. But she was nowhere to be found. A single black glove lay beside the purse, its presence ominous. Oliver immediately called James and the police. James received the call in the middle of a high-stakes meeting. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Oliver's words sank in. Ariana kidnapped Ali behind the Redwood Cafe. James bolted out of the meeting, disregarding the confusion of his executives. He dialed Giselle's number repeatedly, but she didn't answer. Rage and panic battled within him as he careened through New York streets, heading for the cafe. By the time James arrived, the police were on the scene, scouring the alley for clues. Oliver stood by, distraught. James demanded answers from the officers, but they had little to offer, only that there had been no witnesses willing to step forward. Cameras in the area had been tampered with. Desperate, James called in every resource he had, private investigators, old contacts in law enforcement, even corporate security teams. Within hours, he received a tip someone spotted a black SUV matching Oliver's description heading toward a deserted warehouse district on the outskirts of Queens. Fueled by adrenaline, James raced to the location. His security detail advised him to wait for the authorities, but James refused. Ariana was 8 months pregnant, terrified, and possibly harmed. Every second counted. He arrived at a dilapidated warehouse, its windows boarded up, the surroundings deathly quiet beneath the glare of a flickering street lamp. James's gut twisted. This had to be it. With a trembling hand, he pushed open the heavy metal door. Inside, the air was stale, the darkness broken only by thin slivers of moonlight. James called out for Ariana, his voice echoing through the empty corridors. No response. His heart pounded in his ears. Then, as he turned a corner, he saw her. Ariana lay motionless on the concrete floor, hands bound behind her back, a cloth gag over her mouth. He rushed to her side, tears filling his eyes. She was conscious, but weak, her eyes wide with fear. "Ariana," he whispered, removing the gag and untying her bonds. She gasped for air. "James," her voice trembled. "They took my phone, threatened me, said if you didn't leave your property deed for them, they'd—" Her words broke off as sobs overtook her. Before James could console her, footsteps approached. From the darkness emerged 2 men, one brandishing a firearm, the other held a menacing posture. James positioned himself protectively in front of Ariana. "Where's Giselle?" James demanded, voice hard despite his racing pulse. "She's paying us well," one thug sneered. "But she said we could make a little extra if we taught you a lesson. Hand over the deed to the Redwood development, or watch your wife and kids suffer." James's gaze flicked to Ariana's swollen belly. The thought of them harming her or the unborn child ignited a fury in him. "I'll give you whatever you want," he said, voice shaking with both terror and resolve. "Just don't hurt them." One of the men tossed James a stack of documents they had obviously prepared for him to sign over his property. It was a reckless gamble. Redwood development was one of his most lucrative investments. But no fortune, no business venture was worth Ariana's life. James reached for a pen, hands trembling. Ariana clung to him, tears of gratitude and fear streaming down her face. In that moment, he knew the choice was clear. He would sacrifice everything to save them. James scrawled his name on the documents, every stroke of the pen feeling like a weight pressed into his soul. He didn't care about Redwood development anymore. All that mattered was Ariana and their child. Once he finished, he thrust the papers toward the men. "Now let us go," he demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. The thug holding the gun walked over to examine the documents. Then he scoffed. Giselle said, "Once we get these, we finish the job. No loose ends." James braced himself, stepping in front of Ariana. "Over my dead body," he growled. A sudden clamour echoed through the warehouse as the main door burst open. Flashlights blinded them. The next instant, the menacing crack of orders, "Police, drop your weapon," resounded. The thugs spun around, momentarily disoriented. Shots rang out. James pulled Ariana to the floor, shielding her with his body as bullets ricocheted. In a blur, the police tackled one thug, disarming him while the other tried to flee. Officers swarmed in, pinning both criminals to the ground. James held Ariana close, his heart hammering. At the sight of the NYPD uniforms, Ariana sobbed with relief. Amidst the chaos, a tall figure pushed forward, Detective Julia Ramirez, an old acquaintance of James's from previous corporate security issues. "Mr. Lockwood, are you all right?" "We traced the SUV to this location." James nodded shakily. "Thank you. Thank God you came when you did." An ambulance was called, and Ariana was placed on a stretcher. Her anxiety surged as she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. "James, I think something's wrong," she gasped. The stress of the kidnapping had triggered contractions. The baby wasn't due for another month, but it seemed the child had other plans. Lights flashed in the night as Ariana was rushed to the nearest hospital, Mount Sinai, well known for its emergency obstetrics team. James rode with her, gripping her hand, tears streaming down his face. He kept whispering apologies and promises. "I'm here, Ariana. I'm not leaving you. I'm so sorry." In the hospital's delivery room, Ariana fought through each contraction, a mixture of terror and hope flooding her senses. The memory of Giselle's orchestrated nightmare weighed heavily. James stayed at her side, stroking her hair, pressing kisses to her forehead. Hours later, near dawn, a baby's cry pierced the sterile air of the hospital. Ariana collapsed back against the pillows, tearful and exhausted. "It's a boy," the doctor announced, placing the infant tiny, red, and loudly protesting into Ariana's arms. James looked upon his newborn son with awe. He bent down, pressing a tender kiss to the infant's forehead. "Welcome to the world, little man." But even as relief surged through him, James knew the danger wasn't fully over. Giselle was still out there, lurking in the shadows. The men she had hired might be behind bars now, but Giselle herself had yet to face justice. A silent vow formed in James's mind. He would protect Ariana and their child from Giselle's wrath, no matter the cost. He had nearly lost everything to his moment of weakness. Now he would ensure that his family's safety and future were never again jeopardized by his mistakes. In the days that followed, James spent every waking moment by Ariana's side. The trauma of the kidnapping and the unexpected delivery had taken a toll, but mother and child were healthy, a small miracle amidst the chaos. Private investigators soon delivered good news. They had found Giselle Carter, who had fled to a friend's luxury yacht docked near the Florida Keys. Working with the authorities, the investigators arranged for her arrest on charges of conspiracy, kidnapping, and attempted extortion. Giselle was taken into custody in a dramatic sting operation that made brief headlines in the financial press. Pictures of her, disheveled and enraged, accompanied the newspaper articles that recounted the fall of the cunning social climber who had targeted the Lockwood empire. Despite everything, Ariana found her heart still carried a strange mix of emotions. Relief that Giselle could no longer harm them, bitterness that James's betrayal had led them down this path, and yet love for the man who had risked his life and sacrificed a fortune to save her and their newborn son. One evening, as Ariana cradled the baby in her arms in their penthouse's softly lit nursery, James entered quietly. He stood by her side, gazing at the infant with an expression of profound humility. "Ariana," he said, voice trembling, "I don't have the words to express how sorry I am. You almost died because of me, because of my weakness. I can never undo that, but I promise you, I will spend every day of my life making it right." Ariana looked up, tears glistening. "We survived, James, and we have a beautiful son. I won't say it's easy to forget, but I want to find a way forward for our family." In a moment of silent understanding, James lowered himself to one knee, pressing a gentle kiss to Ariana's hand. It was a humble gesture, a vow of renewed devotion. Ariana recognized the sincerity in his eyes. "I'm determined to be the husband and father you both deserve," he whispered, his gaze shifting to their son, named Leo James Lockwood, a symbol of new beginnings. Over the following weeks, therapy sessions, heartfelt conversations, and a shared commitment to rebuilding trust guided the Lockwoods through their healing process. Ariana kept her father and closest friends close, ensuring she had a supportive network. James restructured his business obligations, prioritizing his family above every deal. He parted with Redwood Development, the property that had once been a crowning jewel in his empire, but in its place he found something infinitely more valuable, a renewed sense of purpose and love. As for Giselle, her trial brought to light a web of financial fraud and manipulation. She was sentenced to prison, ensuring that her reign of terror would not resume. In the end, her own ambition had sealed her fate. On a sunny morning 2 months later, Ariana and James threw a small gathering in their penthouse to celebrate Leo's healthy progress. Friends and family cooed over the baby, the air filled with laughter and gentle piano music. Dr. Elizabeth Martin even stopped by, delighted by Leo's strong development. Standing at the window, Ariana caught James's reflection in the glass, holding Leo. Their eyes met, and a tender smile passed between them. The journey had been harrowing, fraught with betrayal and danger, but the dawn that broke over their lives now held a promise of peace and second chances, proof that love, when chosen and fought for, could overcome even the darkest storms. Thank you for joining us on this roller coaster journey of betrayal, obsession, and redemption in A Mistress Tries to Harm a Pregnant Wife, but the billionaire husband risks his life to save her. We've witnessed Ariana's fight to protect her unborn child, endured the heartbreak of James's indiscretion, and cheered when true love triumphed over Giselle's malice. Through it all, courage, loyalty, and the bond of family have proven stronger than any web of deceit. If this real-life drama resonated with you, if you found yourself on the edge of your seat, anxious for Ariana's safety, and celebrating the birth of Leo, then make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stay tuned for more captivating stories filled with intense emotions, thrilling twists, and moral lessons that remind us of the unbreakable power of love and devotion. Thank you for watching,